Hey guys, tonight we sail off the map to a misty, whispering island at the outermost edge of the known Japanese world in an era when emperors still declared war on things you couldn't technically see. Our story takes place so far back that the lines between history and myth are more like polite suggestions than rules. You'll be joining an imperial expedition on a mission to pacify a spirit haunted island, ordered by an emperor with a suspiciously strong belief in talking arrowheads. You probably won't survive this, but not for the usual reasons. You're more likely to be hugged to death by a ghost, get scolded by a particularly vengeful tree, or simply wander off and become part of the landscape, like a polite fog that forgets how to leave. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop me a comment with your location and the current time. I always love seeing how far this sleepy little corner of the internet travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are a court scribe. That means you carry scrolls, transcribe imperial proclamations, and drink an inadvisable amount of tea. Your robes are always slightly ink-stained, and your posture is just this side of tragic. Right now, you are swaying uneasily aboard a long, narrow ship, an imperial vessel outfitted for both war and awkward ceremonial picnics. The smell is a mix of damp wood, seaweed, and nervous perspiration. You haven't seen land in 3 days, only fog and the occasional suspicious seagull. The journey began with vague directions from Emperor Yuryaku, a ruler known for his fluctuating temper and alleged conversations with inanimate objects. According to court rumor, which, as you know, is more trustworthy than any official dispatch, the emperor was meditating in his garden one evening when a ceremonial arrowhead began whispering. It told him that there was an island to the east, cloaked in mist and stuffed with rebellious spirits, whose chaos was upsetting the celestial harmony of the realm. Obviously, the only solution was war. You tried not to laugh. Then you were drafted. Your current companions include 3 Imperial guards who are mostly here for the snacks, a monk who spends most of his time squinting meaningfully at clouds, and the expedition's official cat, who was brought along to absorb bad luck. The cat seems deeply unimpressed by everything, especially you. The fog is beginning to thicken. It curls around the ship like bored silk, muffling the creak of oars and the occasional muttered prayer. The helmsman, a man with a fondness for dramatic sighs, mutters that the sea feels wrong. You lean over the edge of the boat and stare into the water. It looks normal. Sort of. Maybe a little too still. Definitely too quiet. One of the junior priests begins humming a purification chant. He's slightly off-key, but you're too tired to correct him. A royal page approaches with a tray of cold pickled radish and lukewarm barley tea. You accept it with the grim enthusiasm of someone who knows this is probably dinner. The page tries to smile but looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, maybe even exiled. You both share a long-suffering glance. Then he drops the tray. The tea spills across the floorboards in a slow, deliberate trickle, and no one speaks. The silence deepens. Somewhere behind you, the cat sneezes. You wonder what exactly awaits you on this so-called cursed island. So far, you've heard it described as the place where fireflies go to die, a floating graveyard made of fog, just some rocks and old trees, definitely haunted though. No one agrees on what it actually is, but everyone agrees that they do not, under any circumstances, want to be the first one to step foot on it. You, unfortunately, have just been promoted to first shore recorder. This means that when the island appears, you'll be the one handed a brush and a nervous smile, asked to go take a few notes from the shoreline while the others observe from a safe spiritual distance. In the imperial scroll you've been instructed to keep, the expedition is already being called the Great Spiritual Harmonization Voyage, which sounds like a traveling musical group rather than a military campaign. You write that phrase down for the 5th time today, resisting the urge to doodle a frowning spirit in the margins. As night falls, the fog becomes strangely luminous, as if lit from within by a tired moon. The monk stands at the bow of the ship, eyes closed, arms slightly raised, waiting for a sign. He claims he'll recognize it when he sees it. You ask what it will look like. He frowns. "You'll know," he says, unhelpfully. You try to sleep, curling up near a pile of sealed scrolls, but the creaking of the boat and the whisper of the sea seem to keep repeating your name. Probably just your imagination. Probably. The next morning, the fog parts for a moment. A jagged silhouette appears ahead, low cliffs, twisted trees, and a shore littered with black stones. The island has no official name. The emperor referred to it as that place of echoes, though the cook calls it Ghost Rock. You just call it a mistake. Still, duty is duty. You pull your cloak tighter and begin preparing your brush and inkstone for landfall. Somewhere in the distance, a gull caws. It sounds disturbingly like it's laughing. Your inkstone clinks softly as you step off the boat and onto the rocky beach, your brush secured in the fold of your robe, like a miniature sword made for writing under duress. The wind smells of brine and wet bark. The rocks beneath your sandals are slick, rounded, and unnervingly warm, like they've been holding onto the sun longer than they should. Behind you, the crew remains frozen aboard the ship, watching as though you've just volunteered to hug a thunder god. You take 3 steps inland. Nothing happens. No spirits leap out. No curses unfurl from the underbrush. So far, so anticlimactic. And then, thunk, you trip over something half buried in the soil. It's an arrowhead. Black, chipped, oddly smooth. You hold it up, and that's when it happens. A voice, not loud, not harsh, more like someone whispering from under a very heavy blanket, speaks in your head. I told him you'd come. You drop the arrowhead, obviously. It lands silently in the moss. Later, when you recount this moment, you'll rationalize it as stress, exhaustion, or a lingering radish hallucination. But right now, standing alone on an island where the rocks are warm and the air smells slightly of vinegar, you feel something click into place, as though the world has just agreed to a joke you don't understand. Back at court, this entire expedition had begun with that very same arrowhead, delivered one rainy evening to Emperor Yuryaku as part of a tribute from the distant Shimotsuke province. A lovely piece of polished obsidian, mounted in a ceremonial box and supposedly whispered to be cursed. The emperor, ever sensitive to the whisperings of objects, declared that the arrowhead had spoken to him, clearly and directly, about an island that needed disciplining. Too much spirit, he declared, waving it in the air like a scented fan. Too little reverence. We must restore the balance. Historians still argue whether the emperor truly believed the arrowhead was talking or whether it was all an elaborate performance. After all, his court astrologer had just predicted a season of misfortune, and war with invisible enemies is easier than war with ones that bleed. Still, within days, preparations were underway. You remember the ritual. It involved 12 court shamans in white robes, chanting over the arrowhead as it was dipped in a bowl of sake, passed over incense, and then accidentally dropped down a garden drain. It was fished out by a gardener named Haruki, who briefly claimed to hear the voice of his dead aunt before quitting his job and moving to the mountains. The emperor, unfazed, declared this a promising sign. You were assigned to document every phase of the campaign. The selection of men, the purification of the ships, the consecration of supplies, and the slightly bewildered recruitment of a spiritual envoy goat, who was chosen by drawing lots from a jar of grass-fed contenders. The arrowhead was given a place of honor, wrapped in red silk and set atop a lacquered box, guarded at all times by an elderly priest named Shigenobu, who believed the best protection was reciting old gossip from the court archives. You liked Shigenobu. His voice was dry, his stories long, and his memory terrifying. Now, standing on this unfamiliar beach, you think back to his words. If the emperor is wrong, we'll return damp, poor, and embarrassed. But if he's right, we might come back famous or vaporized. The emperor's spiritual beliefs were always eccentric. He once banned the eating of melons for a month because a dream told him they were harboring tiny snakes. Another time, he claimed a folding screen in his chamber had insulted his family and had it burned ceremonially, twice. But this arrowhead was different. He seemed genuinely concerned. Not fearful exactly, more like annoyed, as if the realm's spiritual misalignment were a scheduling conflict he couldn't reschedule. As you gather yourself on the beach, the official party begins to disembark behind you. The first is Commander Nakatomo, a man whose eyebrows alone could start a small rebellion. He carries a ceremonial sword, a fan, and a deep skepticism of anything he can't poke. He nods at you, then immediately pokes a mossy boulder with the hilt of his blade. Nothing happens. He seems disappointed. Then come the priests, gliding down the gangplank like somber ducks. Their sleeves are too long, their chants too vague, and they smell faintly of fermented plum. One of them, a tall woman with eyes like storm clouds, walks to the center of the beach, places a bundle of rice grains on the ground, and whispers to it. The rice does not respond. She seems satisfied. A circle is drawn in the sand. Salt is scattered. Incense is lit. The official blessing begins. You're instructed to write down the opening invocation. It begins. Let these words be heard by rock and root, by mist and moss, by all that is restless. It's long, poetic, and strangely beautiful. You jot down every line, the brush gliding smoothly despite your nervous fingers. The arrowhead, now rewrapped in fresh silk, is placed at the center of the circle. The wind sighs through the trees. A low, melodic hum rises, not from the priests, but from the island itself. Or perhaps your ears. Or perhaps it's your stomach. You do need lunch, but then from the tree line comes a sound. Pop. Just one. Like a cork being removed from a bottle. Everyone freezes. A squirrel scampers into view. Its fur is oddly golden. It stares at the group, then climbs a tree and vanishes. No one breathes for a full minute. The cat, still on the ship, yawns. Well, the commander says, clearing his throat, I suppose we're at war now. You're woken the next morning, not by the sounds of swords clashing or war cries echoing across the beach, but by the soft squelch of something soggy being packed into a lacquered crate. You sit up slowly, the air still heavy with mist and incense smoke. Everything smells faintly of wet rope and pickled radish. Today is provisioning day, which would be straightforward if it weren't for the unusual packing list handed to you by the expedition steward. You blink at the scroll. Then you blink again. Item 1. 600 rice cakes, each individually wrapped in ceremonial paper, printed with phrases like, "Be gone," "Sneezing spirits," and "Your aunt is watching." Item 2. 12 imperial shamans, which you already knew about, but the note adds that 2 are prone to aggressive interpretive chanting and must not be seated together at meals. Item 3. 1 bored imperial cat, still unbothered, still entirely convinced you are beneath its notice. And then the more curious inclusions begin. 3 hollow gourds for catching spirit breath. 4 bundles of sacred straw ropes to ward off uninvited ghosts. 1 very confused carpenter who insists he was supposed to be on a bridge-building expedition. And a selection of apology poems in case diplomacy with the spirits becomes necessary. There is also an elaborate tea set with cups the size of your thumb for ceremonial offerings to tiny deities. Historians still argue whether these were meant for actual miniature gods or if the quartermaster simply misunderstood the scroll. You wander the supply area, taking notes, pretending you know what you're doing. The crates are labeled in increasingly abstract ways. Do not open unless spirits weep, emergency use only, very polite disasters, and contains one blessing, some assembly required. Near the edge of the encampment, 2 priests are arguing about the arrangement of sacred sand. One insists it must be shaped into a spiral. The other demands a grid. A 3rd shaman, eyes half-lidded with fatigue, interrupts by suggesting a nice triangle and promptly falls asleep on his own charm bag. You pass by the goat. Yes, the envoy goat. Its official role is intermediary mammal, though its current function appears to be eating part of the emperor's decree, which had been left carelessly on a nearby rock. You quietly remove what's left, shake off the drool, and consider whether goats are capable of interplanar diplomacy. You decide it's not your problem. Nearby, a smaller group is preparing the ceremonial drums. These are not battle drums. These are resonance initiators, meant to harmonize the field of hearing, according to the priest in charge, who speaks exclusively in riddles and refers to his own voice as a bridge between echoes. You take very few notes during his explanation, mostly drawings of confused ears. Despite the chaos, there is a strange serenity to the preparations. The fog curls around the tents like a sleepy cat. The sand is warm beneath your feet. Even the air hums softly, like it's waiting for someone to clear their throat before telling a very long bedtime story. You pause near the food tent and are handed a rice cake. It's slightly sweet, slightly stale, and inexplicably comforting. You eat it slowly, watching the emperor himself inspect the preparations. He moves with a theatrical deliberateness, each step designed to suggest wisdom, serenity, and an utter disregard for physical exertion. His robes are embroidered with tiny cranes, and he wears a crown that makes him look faintly like a ceremonial soup ladle. He stops at a crate labeled "For Appeasing Tree Spirits Only" and taps it twice with his fan. "Is this one humming?" he asks. It is not. He nods anyway and walks on. You follow at a discreet distance, partly because it's your job, and partly because if anything unpredictable is going to happen, it'll likely happen within a 3-meter radius of the Emperor. Sure enough, as he passes a stand of thin pine trees, a breeze kicks up. The trees sway. A few needles fall in front of him. The Emperor halts. He raises one hand. "This," he says, "is an omen." You glance at the trees. They sway again, very helpfully. "Positive omen?" you ask quietly. He frowns. "It depends on whether pine needles are considered aggressive in this quadrant." "Quadrant?" No one speaks. The cat yawns pointedly. The Emperor turns to the senior priest. "Consult the leaf chart." There is a rustling of scrolls. Someone unrolls a diagram with drawings of various leaves and their interpretive meanings based on angle, descent speed, and emotional density. You pretend to take notes, but instead doodle a picture of yourself slowly melting into the sand. Eventually, the conclusion is reached. The pine needle drop is cautiously auspicious. The Emperor seems pleased. The mission proceeds. One particularly animated servant rushes forward with the ceremonial mirror, polished to a blinding gleam, and places it near the entrance of the main tent, angled just so. "To reflect misfortune," he explains, "and possibly your better side." You nod gravely. As the sun, such as it is, slants higher in the sky, the Emperor gathers the court and delivers a short speech. It includes several metaphorical references to dew, a polite threat against invisible forces, and a concluding poem that begins, "Spirits in mist, your laundry flaps in error." You do not know what that means. Neither does anyone else. But everyone claps. Preparations are complete. Later that evening, as the moon barely peeks through a veil of clouds, the final items are placed on the sacred altar. A bundle of dried sardines, a comb, a folded letter from someone who may or may not be a ghost, and a flute that no one dares to play because it only produces the sound of sobbing. You lie back on your thin sleeping mat, arms crossed behind your head, brush and ink beside you. The island is quiet now, but not silent. It murmurs. You can't say how, but it does, like it's dreaming about your expedition, or possibly just laughing. You wake up to the sound of a heron dancing. Well, not dancing exactly, more like flapping awkwardly in the sacred circle drawn in the sand, scattering salt lines and knocking over a miniature shrine made entirely of twigs and extremely sincere intentions. Still, it's enough to set the camp buzzing. The Emperor is delighted. A dancing heron is always a sign. He declares, eyes glittering, possibly a very specific one. One of the shamans claps gently, then immediately faints. Everyone freezes. You slowly reach for your ink brush. Later, you'll transcribe this scene into the official record as spiritual interference manifested in avian form. Response included reverence, minor collapse, and applause. Not that it clears anything up. The morning is all about omens, receiving, interpreting, misinterpreting, and occasionally inventing them. A thin layer of mist clings to the beach like it, too, is waiting to see how this day will go. You are assigned to accompany the omen interpreters as they do their rounds. This mostly involves watching them look thoughtfully at completely normal things, while murmuring phrases like, "The breeze is flirtatious today," and "This rock is definitely listening." At one point, a junior priest spills soy sauce down the front of his ceremonial robe, then immediately declares the resulting stain to be shaped like a divine horse. Another insists it looks more like a disapproving melon. A heated debate ensues. Eventually, they agree that the stain means progress, but with unusual interruptions. The priest does not get a replacement robe. Meanwhile, the Emperor convenes a council to decide whether the spiritual opposition has formally responded to his presence. The main evidence, a weird noise heard near the latrines, and a tree that keeps creaking in a way that might be syllabic. The Imperial Dream Interpreter suggests that the spirits are trying to communicate in abstract emotional concepts, possibly involving scented wind and surprise drizzle. Commander Nakatomo is not impressed. He, like you, was trained in more concrete matters: logistics, movement, the occasional sword-waving display. But even he's beginning to accept that this campaign isn't going to involve standard battles. His current challenge, keeping his soldiers calm while they're being bombarded with metaphysical signs from the flora. "This tree keeps glaring at me," one soldier tells him, dead serious. "It's a pine," Nakatomo replies. "It doesn't even have eyes." "Well, it's doing something," the soldier insists. You record it all, dutifully. Page after page of cloudy observations and poetic suspicions. Somewhere in the official expedition log is an entire paragraph about the deeply spiritual presence of an unusually circular puddle. But not all omens are so subtle. Just before midday, one of the scout parties returns from inland with an actual object. A small clay statue half buried in the soil, shaped like a frog holding a fan. Its expression is either delighted or mildly offended. It's hard to tell with frogs. The priests gather, they hum, they chant. One shaman swears she hears the statue whispering something about rainfall. Another suggests it is a token of non-hostility from the amphibious realm. The emperor names it Ambassador of Peace and places it on a cushion beside the arrowhead. The cat walks up, sniffs it, and falls asleep beside it. You write, "Peace negotiations have entered a dormant phase." Later, during the midday meal, boiled millet, dried persimmons, and something the cook swears is blessed mushroom paste, the emperor gives a brief address from the top of a rock. He talks about the necessity of patience when dealing with the unseen's probable artistic tendencies, and how the island smells vaguely of wisdom. You admire how confidently he delivers this speech while wearing a robe decorated with embroidered cloudfish. The man does not doubt his sense of purpose. But while the upper court continues to wax poetic, the lower ranks are increasingly unsettled. You overhear two sailors arguing over the sound of a flute. One swears he heard it last night, 3 notes, clear as silver. The other claims it was just wind and indigestion. Either way, both now refuse to sleep alone. Another soldier claims his reflection in a puddle winked at him. His friends think he just blinked. Still, no one wants to camp near that puddle now. At your own tent, you discover your inkstone has turned a slightly different shade of gray. This could mean absolutely nothing, or everything. You note it down just in case. Back at the sacred circle, the dancing heron has returned. It lands with a dignity entirely inappropriate for its earlier chaos. The emperor bows to it. The heron bows back. There is a short moment in which it appears the emperor may try to appoint it to a court position. You brace for it. Fortunately, the heron departs before he can complete the appointment ceremony. By late afternoon, you're sent to the beach again to assist in preparing the next rite, an offering of food and incense set adrift in a small boat. It's meant to carry goodwill to the spirits residing offshore. You help load the boat with carefully arranged rice cakes, dried fruit, and one especially artistic gourd. As the tide carries it away, a single bird circles overhead, then follows the offering boat out to sea. Everyone takes this as a positive sign, except the cook, who grumbles about wasted fruit. The day ends with a reading of the Mist Harmonization poem, a newly written composition by the emperor himself, which includes 27 separate references to fog, 3 to regretful ghosts, and 1 inexplicable line about spicy radishes. You transcribe it all with as much reverence as you can muster. Your handwriting is beginning to look mildly possessed, but you take that as a good omen. By nightfall, everyone is exhausted from interpreting breezes and bowing to birds. Even the goat seems tired. You curl up beneath your cloak, listening to the slow rhythm of waves and wondering what it means when a war starts with dancing herons and polite ghost offerings. You dream of fog that whispers in rhyme. It's dawn again, and the ship's bell rings 3 slow times, not to mark danger or attack, but to summon all hands to the morning briefing, which now includes both military officers and spirit consultants. The fog is thicker than ever. It doesn't so much hang in the air as lounge, like it's claimed squatters' rights on the beach. You sip bitter tea from a bamboo cup and watch as the emperor sits beneath a ceremonial canopy, squinting at a scroll written by a monk who claims he dreamt of a fox delivering war plans last night. The scroll is vague, but it does mention a necessary confrontation with that which does not confront, which sounds promisingly like something that could mean anything. So the emperor nods sagely and announces that today, the imperial army will begin its official march of assertion. No one quite knows what this means. Still, orders are orders. You gather with a small group of scribes, guards, priests, and utterly unconvinced sailors, and begin the ceremonial procession inland, drums echoing softly, incense wafting sideways, and a goat wearing a small banner that says, Messenger of Harmony, trotting faithfully at the rear. Commander Nakatomo walks beside you, muttering under his breath. So what's the plan, you ask? Apparently, he says, we walk in a wide circle, make our presence known, and hope the spirits either bow to our might or feel politely acknowledged. Very assertive, you nod. Terrifying, he agrees. As you leave the beach behind, the forest looms up, tall, damp, filled with the sighs of hidden things. The path is more suggestion than reality, twisting between gnarled trunks and mossy stones that seem, occasionally, to rearrange themselves. You pass under a canopy of whispering leaves. One priest pauses, touches a vine, and announces that it feels melancholic but open to dialogue. You write that down. Sort of. At one point, the group stops entirely while two junior shamans argue over whether the wind is respectfully hesitant or openly mocking. It matters, apparently, because the incense must be angled differently depending on the emotional posture of the breeze. Meanwhile, the soldiers grow increasingly restless. One mutters that his armor feels colder than usual. Another says he's heard his name whispered by a fern, twice. You check the fern. It seems indifferent. Then comes the incident with the singing tree. It starts low, a kind of rhythmic hum, almost like breath. The tree is tall, hollowed near the base, and slightly crooked, like it's been leaning into rumors for centuries. As the wind moves through its cavity, it produces a series of rising notes. Everyone freezes. A few of the priests drop to their knees. One cries. The goat lets out a long, unimpressed bleat. The emperor, who has been carried partway up the trail in a palanquin, steps out and approaches the tree. He presses a hand to the bark. Is this a challenge? He asks the air. The tree hums again. Commander Nakatomo clears his throat. It's likely just the wind, Your Majesty. Nonsense, the emperor replies. This is a declaration of intention. You're not sure whose intention, but the general consensus is that a response is required. So, a ceremonial drum is brought forward. A shaman steps up. There is an exchange of beats, 3 from the tree, 2 from the drum, then 4 confused beats from a priest who missed the pattern. The tree makes a high-pitched wheeze that may be a laugh. You're not sure whether you've just witnessed the beginning of peace talks or the world's slowest spiritual roast battle. Eventually, the procession continues, slowly, deliberately. You reach a clearing around midday, where the light filters through the mist like a tired candle. It's decided that this spot will serve as a forward base for the next phase of operations. A silk banner is raised, declaring, in florid calligraphy, by order of the emperor, peace shall be imposed. A small altar is built. Offerings are placed, a bowl of rice, a comb, a folded letter addressed to whom it may concern if you're a spirit. You volunteer to read the letter aloud. It's surprisingly well written, with flowing prose and a subtle hint of desperation. It ends with, we come in peace, unless peace isn't what you prefer, in which case, we are open to interpretation. As night falls, the forest noises grow louder. Crickets. Owls. The occasional rustle of something you very much hope is not the spirit of a badger. The camp settles down. Fires are lit low, more for ceremony than warmth. No one wants to disturb the balance. The cat finds a rock to perch on and spends a solid hour staring intently at nothing. You lie on your mat, scroll across your chest, trying to make sense of the day. So far, the campaign has involved 1 tree conversation, 2 aggressive gusts of wind, a goat with diplomatic immunity, and absolutely 0 tangible enemies. And yet, something in the air feels different. You're not afraid exactly, but there's a hum beneath your skin, like you're being watched kindly by something that doesn't use eyes. You close your eyes, brush still in your hand, ink smudged on your sleeves, and whisper one last question into the dark. So, are we winning? A soft wind rustles the leaves above. Possibly. The next morning, someone wakes the camp by sneezing. Not an ordinary sneeze, a thunderous, echoing eruption from one of the junior priests that seems to bounce between the trees and rattle a few pots. Everyone jolts awake. One of the guards falls backward into the offering bowl. The goat bleats in alarm and then pretends it wasn't involved. You rub your eyes and sit up slowly, the dream you had. Something about mist turning into old ladies who offered unsolicited advice, already dissolving. The Emperor, already up and sipping ginger tea, takes the sneeze as a serious development. The spirits are testing our balance, he declares. Commander Nakatomo mumbles, it's probably just pollen, but loud enough for you to hear. Not for the first time. You're grateful the Emperor doesn't always hear everything. You head to the edge of camp, where a small team of priests are inspecting the trees for signs of spiritual mucus. That's an actual phrase you jot down. One of them is sniffing a tree with the seriousness of a wine taster. Meanwhile, the ritualists begin preparations for today's key event, the ritual of gentle provocation. It's exactly what it sounds like. The plan, according to the Emperor's advisors, is to gently poke the local spirits into revealing themselves. Nothing aggressive, just polite nudging. The theory is that if the expedition expresses enough formal presence without outright aggression, the island's forces, should they exist, will have to acknowledge them, or at least file a complaint. You're assigned to help prepare the offerings. This involves painting small messages on river stones, phrases like, "We are here," with respect, and "Please advise." One priest, slightly passive-aggressive, adds, "You're very quiet for someone who lives here." The stones are placed in a grid near the singing tree, each carefully positioned according to emotional feng shui. You help a shaman align one with the grain of a moss patch while trying not to sneeze yourself. The actual ritual is conducted at midday. A ceremonial gong is struck, not too loudly, just enough to imply confidence. Then incense is lit in a spiral, forming a kind of gentle vortex that smells like sandalwood and sesame oil. The Emperor stands, his robe shimmering in the filtered sunlight, and recites a poem. It begins, "Moss of memory, stone of breath, if you're listening, blink or cough." It is, as far as poetry goes, either brilliant or completely unhinged. You transcribe it as though it's the former. That's what you're paid for. Then comes the offering bowl, a mixture of roasted barley, dried fish, and a very polite letter requesting audience with local dignitaries, spectral or otherwise. It's placed at the center of the grid. Everyone waits. 10 minutes pass, then 20. The goat eats a ceremonial sash. Finally, just as someone begins to yawn, a breeze stirs the trees, sharp and quick, a sudden burst that flips two of the message stones and sends a few leaves swirling toward the altar. Everyone freezes. Commander Nakatomo narrows his eyes. The Emperor smiles like a man who's just received a divine RSVP. "It begins," he says. What exactly has begun is unclear. But no one asks. That night, back in camp, you and the scribes attempt to summarize the day's events. The official log includes phrases like mild atmospheric response, potential leaf-based message, and goat-consumed textile diplomacy. One of the younger scribes swears that while cleaning a bowl, she heard a voice say, "Try honey instead." Whether it was a spirit or just her stomach remains debated. You record it under edible communications. Dinner is quiet. Everyone is on edge in that careful, reverent way people get when they think they're being watched but don't want to seem rude about it. You chew slowly on pickled radish, watching mist curl between the trees like it's auditioning for a play. Suddenly, the cat, who's been mostly inert for days, leaps onto the Emperor's lap, stares into the darkness, and hisses. Once. Quietly. Then settles down and falls asleep. That hiss causes more paperwork than you could possibly imagine. The Emperor calls a late-night meeting to review the implications. A full dozen theories are proposed. The leading three are: the cat sensed a spirit and warned it away. The cat is the spirit and was making a statement. The cat had indigestion. No one is entirely satisfied with these options, but everyone agrees the night feels heavier. Before turning in, a small party is sent to the river to leave a gourd filled with sweet water and a poem about forgiveness. Just in case the gentle provocation came off as passive-aggressive, you volunteer to go along. The forest feels different under the moon. Not hostile, just attentive. You walk in silence, placing the gourd on a moss-covered rock and whisper the poem into the air like a secret. The words hang there, then dissolve. On your way back, something brushes your sleeve. You freeze. It's just a vine. Probably. You smile nervously, bow slightly, just to be safe, and hurry back to camp. That night, you dream of frogs in council chambers, passing laws about mist. One of them wears a crown. Another sounds like the Emperor. When you wake, your inkstone is missing, and in its place, a perfectly round pebble, warm to the touch. You hold the pebble in your palm for a long time before speaking to anyone. It's smooth, unnaturally so, and still faintly warm, as if it remembers being somewhere, not cold. There's no note, no obvious enchantment, and certainly no label reading, "Thanks for the offering, sincerely the spirits." But still, you feel watched. Not in a creepy way. More like when a cat stares at you from across the room and you can't tell if it's judging or composing a poem about your posture. By the time the sun slinks into the sky, more aglow than a beam, you've decided to say nothing about the pebble just yet. The last time someone announced an object had appeared mysteriously, it was just a teacup someone had misplaced. That didn't stop 3 full debates, 1 ceremonial exorcism, and the writing of a new ritual song titled "The Cup Remembers." So, you quietly tuck the stone into your pouch, next to a half-used scroll and a drawing of a chicken you found last week that no one has claimed. Today's mood in camp is brisk confusion. Everyone walks a little faster, speaks a little softer, and bows slightly longer to nothing in particular. The emperor begins the morning by declaring a day of symbolic fortitude, which translates to, let's do something bold, but vaguely. The chosen activity, the placement of the imperial banner at the island's highest visible point. Now, if this were a traditional military campaign, this would be a straightforward operation. Send scouts, secure the hill, plant the flag. But this isn't a traditional anything. Instead, a procession is organized, complete with gong carriers, incense bearers, 1 mildly sarcastic drum boy, and a goat still wearing its Messenger of Harmony banner, though now someone has sewn tiny bells onto its horns. It looks faintly embarrassed. The journey to the hilltop is long and winding. The mist thickens the higher you climb. Trees loom sideways as if leaning in to gossip. The path becomes little more than suggestion, and at one point, everyone is forced to stop while a priest insists on asking a particularly mossy boulder for permission to proceed. Apparently, the boulder gives its blessing. You reach the summit just past midday. The view, such as it is, consists of swirling fog and the distant outline of what might be another hill, or a very large spiritual tortoise. No one can say. The emperor ascends the last few steps with dramatic flair, his sleeves trailing like curtains in a summer breeze. With deliberate elegance, he unfurls the imperial banner. It flutters once, twice, then catches on a twig. A brief scuffle ensues. Eventually, the banner is righted and stands proud. It reads, "Peace is certain. Resistance is a vague concept." Everyone claps politely. A ceremonial tea is prepared right there on the hilltop, using water carried in sacred gourds. The flavor, you're told, is meant to reflect the emotional state of the air. Yours tastes like uncertainty with a hint of regretful almonds. Then comes the strange part. As the tea ceremony ends and the priests begin packing up their instruments, a new sound emerges from the woods below. Faint, slow, rhythmic, like someone dragging a string of bells across bark. You're not the only one who hears it. Everyone stills. Commander Nakatomo squints into the trees. No wind. One priest murmurs, "It's the forest breathing again." The emperor raises a hand. "No, this is contact." Moments later, a shape appears in the mist. Not a ghost, not a soldier, a deer, a perfectly ordinary deer. Except for the strip of white cloth tied gently around its neck, on which something, has inked a single perfectly legible character. Listen. The deer stares at you all. Then, with unbothered grace, turns and walks back into the fog. No one follows. Instead, the emperor orders a full retreat to camp. "Respect the message," he says. "Let them speak first." Back at camp, the deer's visit becomes the sole topic of conversation. Speculation ranges wildly. A trained animal sent by hidden monks. A spirit in deer form, using simple symbols to bridge the communicative gap. The actual local leader of the spirits. A 4-legged diplomat. Historians still argue whether the character on the cloth meant listen, heed, or you forgot something. The original cloth disappears within a day, and no one admits to having taken it. You suspect the cat. The official logs call it the deer incident of Mist Hill, and you spend a full 2 hours transcribing theories while eating rice cakes that taste faintly like soap. One priest swears the deer blinked 3 times in a coded message. You write it down, even if it's probably just deer behavior. That night, the emperor gives a speech around the fire, flanked by torches and the sound of frogs in the distance. "We have declared peace," he says. "We have made noise. We have placed symbols. Now we must listen." Someone coughs dramatically, possibly on purpose. The rest of the speech includes metaphors involving koi fish, unwritten poems, and the kind of silence that makes noise blush. You write it all down. Before bed, you check your pouch. The pebble is still there, still warm, but now etched faintly on its underside, another character. You don't recognize it. It might mean safe, or wait, or don't open until tomorrow. You sleep with your hand resting on it, just in case. You wake to the sound of the cat snoring gently into your ink scroll. Its paws are tucked neatly beneath its body, tail curled in a perfect question mark, and its breath rises and falls in sync with the fog drifting through camp like it owns the place. You gently ease the scroll out from under its cheek. The cat doesn't stir, not even a twitch. The pebble is still warm in your pouch. Today, the emperor announces, will be devoted to what he calls non-movement as diplomacy. He explains this while perched atop a wide stone, sipping tea that tastes faintly of old mushrooms and unexpected lemon. We've stirred the pond, he says. Now we must let the ripples speak. You blink at him. Speak ripples? Yes, he says, with the calm authority of someone who routinely converses with metaphorical water. So no marching, no rituals, no symbolic provocations. Today, the expedition will sit, listen, watch. It sounds relaxing. It is not. The stillness makes people twitchy. Soldiers pace out of boredom. Priests keep adjusting their robes. One scribe spends the morning copying a single poem about patience over and over again, getting more passive-aggressive with each draft. It ends with, fine, I'm listening. Nothing's happening. Is this the point? You're assigned to observation duty, which mostly involves sitting on a mat and writing down everything that doesn't happen. Hour 1. The mist curls left instead of right. Noted. Hour 2. A bird calls. Possibly a goose. Possibly a soul in distress. Noted. Hour 3. A twig snaps in the woods. Everyone looks. It's a squirrel. The most exciting moment before lunch comes when a breeze flips someone's hat directly into the sacred offering bowl. This is declared a minor metaphorical incident. And the hat is retrieved with chopsticks. You scribble, symbolic intrusion via weather. Response measured, hat unharmed. Then, just after midday, the silence shifts. It's hard to describe, but you feel it in your shoulders, your ears, your chest, like the air itself is tightening, as if drawing a breath. Everyone senses it. One of the younger guards whispers, "Does anyone else feel like we're about to be graded?" The cat stands and walks a full circle around the camp, tail high, eyes sharp. Then it sits beside the emperor's cushion and begins to wash its paw with unsettling intensity. The emperor straightens his robe. "They're here." "Who?" you whisper. "The ones we're listening to," he replies. You're not sure if that's comforting or terrifying. At that moment, the drums begin. Not yours, not any human hand, low, slow, muffled, like someone thumping the earth from below. Boom, boom, pause, boom, boom. It echoes through the trees, a rhythm that seems older than sound. It's not music, not exactly. It's a presence. You and the other scribes glance at one another, then begin furiously writing. Auditory contact from unidentified source, rhythm deliberate, unseen percussion. The sound continues for nearly an hour. You sit frozen the entire time, unsure whether to take off your shoes, recite a poem, or offer your lunch in tribute. Commander Nakatomo looks ready to charge something, but wisely refrains. He chews a rice cracker with the focused intensity of a man suppressing the urge to sword dance. Finally, the drumming fades. Into the silence, the emperor murmurs, "They accept our presence." A cheer would be too loud. So instead, everyone just exhales. Long, slow, synchronized relief. Even the goat gives a little sigh. That evening, the camp prepares a new kind of offering. Not food, not scrolls. Something. Less imperial. Personal items. The emperor invites everyone, soldiers, priests, even you, to offer something from themselves. Nothing large, just tokens, trinkets, gestures. You contribute a small brush, the handle worn from years of writing. Another scribe offers a carved charm from his grandmother. A soldier places a polished stone shaped like a fish. Someone even adds a tiny carved flute, silent but lovely. They're arranged on a flat stone near the edge of the forest, beneath a tree that seems suddenly very interested. No prayers, no chants, just gifts. It's strangely moving. As dusk settles, the fog glows orange in the light of low fires. No spirits appear. No voices whisper. But you feel seen. Later, you return to your mat and find something waiting. Your brush, the one you offered. But now it's been dipped in gold paint at the tip. A single character brushed across the shaft. Continue. You sit with it in your lap for a long while. Historians still debate whether the spirits were real or metaphorical, or simply the product of a highly theatrical emperor and a great deal of fermented barley. Some say the drums were natural phenomena, echoes in the rocks. Others say they've heard them still in deep forests on lonely islands. But you were here. You heard the drums. You saw the deer. And your brush, now glinting gently in the firelight, has been answered. The cat curls beside you. You don't sleep so much as settle, like a leaf finally accepted by the stream. Morning unfolds slowly like the delicate petals of a camellia, still damp with the island's persistent mist. The camp stirs with a softer rhythm today, the kind that whispers rather than demands. The emperor's mood matches this tempo, contemplative, patient, as if the island itself has set the pace. You notice the cat is unusually attentive, following shadows and pausing at invisible thresholds. It's earned an unofficial title among the scribes, Spirit Liaison Officer. Though, judging by its disinterested grooming, the cat doesn't quite appreciate the new workload. Today, the emperor decrees a new ritual, the silent exchange. It's a curious ceremony designed not to speak or gesture, but to simply be in shared space with whatever might be watching from the mist. The idea is to build trust through presence alone, like two old friends sitting quietly on a porch without the need for words. You're assigned to sit at the perimeter of the camp with a small group of scribes and guards, instructed not to move or make sound for an entire hour. If you succeed, the ritual is a success. If you fail, well, nobody's quite sure what happens, but the mood suggests it's best not to find out. The hour feels endless. Your eyes drift shut multiple times, but you force them open, focusing on the damp leaves and distant calls of unseen birds. The mist wraps you in a cool embrace, and your breath puffs in soft clouds. Midway through, the cat suddenly stands, its gaze fixed on a particular spot in the thicket. The air shifts again, a subtle change, like the quiet before the tide rolls in. You hold your breath. Then, without warning, a slow, deliberate rustling begins. Leaves part as a small figure steps forward. Not a ghost or spirit, but a human. A woman emerges, cloaked in moss and seaweed, her eyes reflecting the dim light like twin stars. Her presence is calm, unthreatening, but utterly otherworldly. She carries no weapons, only a small wooden flute slung around her neck. The camp remains silent, frozen in a collective breath. The woman offers a slight bow, then raises the flute and plays a single, haunting note, long, pure, and vibrating with ancient power. The sound seems to weave through the mist, softening the edges of the world. You feel your pulse slow. After the note fades, she speaks softly in a language no one understands, but somehow everyone feels the meaning. We see you. We hear you. The emperor steps forward, responding with a nod and a carefully measured bow. His voice is steady and respectful as he replies in the local tongue he's been practicing in secret. An exchange follows. Simple, deliberate. No demands. No threats. Just a conversation woven through music, gestures, and quiet respect. Historians still debate whether this woman was truly a spiritual envoy or a local inhabitant cloaked in ritual garb. Some argue she was a figment of collective imagination, born from deep desire for peace. Others point to the flute, claiming its tune is still preserved in secret folk songs. The encounter marks a turning point. The atmosphere shifts from uneasy curiosity to mutual acknowledgement. The island's spirits, or guardians, have made their first direct contact. You record every detail with care. The softness of her voice, the texture of her cloak, the way the mist curled around her like a protective shawl. That night, under a sky heavy with stars, the camp feels lighter. Even the goat seems content, if a bit smug about its role as messenger of harmony. You tuck the golden-brushed brush into your sleeve and watch the fire flicker as your thoughts drift like leaves on a slow-moving stream. The journey, it seems, is just beginning. The morning brings with it a gentle drizzle, the kind that seems to wash away the heaviness from the previous day's tension. The camp is quieter, subdued in a way that feels almost reverent. Everyone seems to sense that something has shifted in the unspoken balance between the living and whatever watches from the mist. The emperor convenes a council meeting beneath a canopy of drooping branches heavy with dew. He invites the senior priests, the commander, and a few scribes, yourself included, to discuss the implications of the previous day's encounter. The mood is thoughtful, tinged with a quiet excitement beneath the surface. The emperor begins. We have received a message in music and presence. Now we must consider how to respond in kind. The priests nod solemnly, some murmuring about ancient rites and forgotten songs once sung to appease the spirits of the land. Commander Nakatomo taps his fingers thoughtfully on the wooden table, occasionally glancing toward the window where the mist coils like a living thing. The discussion quickly turns to the idea of establishing ongoing communication, rituals and exchanges that acknowledge the island's guardians as active participants, not merely obstacles or curiosities. You hear phrases like reciprocal respect and living diplomacy, terms that sound both hopeful and vaguely complicated. Amid the serious debate, one priest quietly suggests incorporating local plants known for their calming properties into future ceremonies, camellia petals, for example, and the fragrant yuzu. You note this with interest, imagining how the scents might blend with the ambient sounds to create a truly immersive experience. You also learn of a curious tradition in a distant province where villagers leave small clay figures by the riverside to honor unseen water spirits, a detail that feels oddly relevant, given the island's constant fog and dampness. Historians still argue whether such gestures were purely symbolic or if they genuinely influenced the spirit's behavior. But here, they seem to serve as a template for this fragile new relationship. The emperor finally proposes a plan to craft a series of daily offerings, each distinct and thoughtfully prepared to engage the island's guardians. The goal is clear: foster trust without intrusion, and above all, maintain peace. As the meeting disperses, you find yourself reflecting on the delicate dance unfolding between worlds, human and spirit, seen and unseen, action and stillness. It's a balance as intricate as the finest silk embroidery, each thread essential to the pattern's integrity. Later, wandering near the edge of camp, you spot the cat again, this time perched atop a mossy stone, tail flicking thoughtfully. It watches you with those inscrutable eyes, as if acknowledging the enormity of what lies ahead. The pebble in your pouch remains warm, a steady heartbeat against your side. You tuck it deeper into your sleeve and exhale slowly. Tomorrow promises new rituals, new moments of quiet exchange, and perhaps new mysteries. For now, you settle back into the rhythm of the island, its soft whispers, its hidden rhythms, and prepare to listen more closely than ever before. The following day dawns cool and misty, the island wrapped once again in its characteristic veil of fog. You wake to the faint sound of birdsong mingling with the distant murmur of waves, a gentle chorus that seems to cradle the entire camp in a soft embrace. The air tastes faintly of salt and earth, grounding you in this strange yet familiar place. The emperor announces the first of the new daily offerings, a ritual involving the careful preparation and presentation of camellia petals, gathered at dawn when their fragrance is most potent. The petals are laid out in delicate patterns on flat stones near the camp's perimeter, intended as an olfactory bridge to the island's unseen guardians. You participate in the preparation, feeling the soft texture of the petals between your fingers and inhaling their subtle or sweet aroma. It's soothing, almost meditative, as you arrange them in concentric circles, each one a quiet prayer for harmony and understanding. As the ritual begins, the camp falls into a hushed reverence. The emperor leads a silent meditation, inviting everyone to focus on the scents and the stillness around them. You close your eyes, breathing deeply, and for a moment, the world seems to hold its breath with you. Suddenly, the soft rustling of leaves interrupts the quiet. A figure steps from the mist, a young woman dressed in woven reeds and adorned with small seashells that catch the light. She approaches the camellia offering with graceful respect, pausing to inhale its fragrance before gently placing a hand over her heart. The encounter is wordless but charged with meaning. You sense a mutual recognition, a silent acknowledgement of the efforts to communicate across realms. The woman's presence feels like a balm, a bridge between human intention and natural spirit. Historians still debate whether such daily offerings were a common practice among isolated communities or a unique adaptation born of this particular island's mysteries. Some suggest that these rituals helped foster a sustainable coexistence, while others argue they were primarily symbolic acts of human hope and resilience. Later, you learn that the camellia petals, left untouched, eventually wither and scatter in the wind, a slow dance of impermanence that echoes the delicate balance between respect and intrusion. The emperor reflects quietly on the ritual's success, emphasizing patience and attentiveness as the foundation for future interactions. The camp settles into a new rhythm, one marked by gentle anticipation and respectful observation. As twilight deepens, you find yourself sitting by the fire, the golden brushed brush resting lightly in your hand. The cat curls beside you, purring softly, a steady, comforting presence amid the unfolding mysteries. You realize that in this quiet exchange, amid petals and mist, something profound is taking shape. A fragile piece woven from patience, scent, and silent understanding. The island wakes slowly to another mist-shrouded morning, the air thick with anticipation and the faint scent of salt and moss. You find yourself drawn to the sound of distant waves mingling with the occasional call of seabirds, a soundtrack both timeless and strangely soothing. The camp moves quietly, as if aware that today's ritual carries a deeper significance. The emperor introduces a new offering, a series of carefully carved wooden figures representing various animals believed to inhabit the island and its surrounding waters. Each carving is a delicate work of art, etched with subtle detail. A turtle with a shell etched in swirling patterns, a crane poised mid-step, a fish with scales shimmering in the soft light. You help prepare the figures for presentation, arranging them on a smooth slab of stone near the edge of the forest. The carvings seem to capture something of the island's spirit, a silent testament to the intricate relationship between nature and the unseen guardians. The ritual begins, with the emperor reciting a softly spoken invocation, a blend of ancient words and personal supplications, asking for protection and mutual respect. The camp falls into a reflective hush, each person lost in their own thoughts as the wooden figures stand sentinel in the mist. As you observe, a gentle breeze stirs the carvings, causing a few to rock ever so slightly. The cat, now an experienced participant, pads quietly around the perimeter, tail held high, its gaze flickering between the figures and the swirling fog. Suddenly, from the depths of the forest comes the faintest sound, a soft tapping, rhythmic and deliberate, like wood striking wood. You freeze, heart quickening, as the tapping grows louder and more insistent. Then, emerging from the shadows, a figure appears, an elder of the island's native community, garbed in robes woven from bark and adorned with feathers and beads. In their hands, they hold a wooden staff carved with symbols that resonate deeply with the figures on the stone slab. The elder approaches slowly, offering a carved animal figure of their own, a small fox with eyes carved from polished jet. They place it gently beside the others, a gesture of inclusion and peace. The exchange feels profound, a quiet acknowledgement of shared guardianship and respect. The emperor bows deeply, reciprocating with a carved figure of his own, a dragonfly, delicate and shimmering in the fading light. Historians still debate the extent of contact between imperial envoys and indigenous island communities during this era. Some argue these exchanges were rare and symbolic, while others believe they formed the basis of a complex network of mutual respect and cultural exchange. As the ritual concludes, you note the serene expressions on the faces around you, the calm acceptance that emerges when two worlds find a way to communicate without words. That night, you lie beneath a canopy of stars, the golden brushed brush resting beside you, a quiet reminder of the journey's ongoing unfolding. The cat curls at your feet, a silent guardian in the night. You close your eyes, feeling the weight of the day settle softly around you. The morning mist clings to the trees like a delicate veil as you awaken to a softer light filtering through the canopy. The camp breathes quietly, its usual bustle replaced by a gentle stillness that feels almost sacred. The cat stretches lazily, eyes half closed, before settling back down beside your mat, as if inviting you to savor the calm. Today's ritual takes an unexpected turn. The emperor announces the introduction of storytelling, ancient tales whispered to the rhythm of the island's heartbeat. He explains that stories are bridges, capable of crossing worlds and weaving understanding where words alone might fail. You gather with others around a low fire, the air cool and tinged with the scent of burning cedar. The emperor begins, his voice low and steady, recounting a legend of the island's origins, a tale of mist-born spirits, of mountains rising from the sea, and of guardians who watch over the land with quiet vigilance. The narrative is soothing, rich with vivid imagery and gentle humor. You imagine the spirits dancing through fog-drenched forests, their laughter like the tinkling of distant bells. A young scribe beside you chuckles softly when the emperor describes a mischievous spirit known for rearranging camp supplies, causing endless mild confusion. Historians still debate the authenticity of these tales, questioning whether they were oral traditions passed down through generations or later creations designed to bind the community together during times of uncertainty. As the story unfolds, the mist seems to thicken, embracing the camp like a soft blanket. You feel transported, carried away on the gentle waves of narrative, your mind drifting in time with the flickering flames. After the tale, the camp remains quiet, the story lingering in the air like a comforting presence. The cat twitches its ears and lets out a contented sigh. Later, as you prepare your notes, you notice a small token left beside your mat, a carved wooden bell, its surface worn smooth by time. It feels like an invitation to listen more deeply, to attune yourself not just to words, but to the spaces between them. The emperor smiles quietly when you show him the bell, nodding as if to say, "The conversation continues." You settle in for the night, the golden brushed brush resting gently in your hand, its single character glowing softly in the firelight. The island's mysteries feel less distant now, more like a quiet companion on your journey toward understanding and rest. Dawn arrives with a gentle light that filters through the canopy in soft beams, casting dancing shadows on the forest floor. The camp stirs quietly, the air humming with a subtle energy that feels both ancient and immediate. The cat, now a seasoned companion on this journey, weaves through the tents with the grace of a practiced emissary. Today's focus is on food, not just sustenance, but a symbolic offering meant to honor the island's spirit guardians. The emperor announces the preparation of a simple yet meaningful meal. Steamed rice mixed with wild herbs and small shells gathered from the shore, a dish meant to embody the island's bounty. You assist in gathering the herbs, noting their delicate fragrance and the tiny, iridescent shells that glisten like forgotten treasures. The preparation is slow and deliberate, each step an act of mindfulness and respect. As the meal is laid out on a wooden platter near the camp's edge, the emperor offers a quiet prayer, inviting the island's guardians to partake in this humble feast. The camp falls silent, the only sounds the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant call of seabirds. Suddenly, a soft breeze stirs the platter, causing a few grains of rice to scatter across the stone. The cat eyes the movement intently, but remains still, as if understanding the significance of the moment. You feel a deep connection to the cycle of giving and receiving, the delicate balance between human hands and natural forces. The meal is more than food. It's a symbol of harmony. Now, a gesture of goodwill extended across the boundary between worlds. Historians still debate whether such food offerings were common in isolated communities or unique adaptations to particular spiritual beliefs. Some suggest they were practical ways to involve the senses in rituals, while others see them as profound acts of reverence. As the ritual concludes, you notice a faint scent of yuzu carried on the breeze, mingling with the lingering aroma of the herbs, a sensory echo of earlier offerings, tying the day's events together in a gentle loop. You tuck the golden brushed brush safely away, feeling its warmth as a quiet reminder of the unfolding story. The cat settles beside you once more, purring softly as twilight descends. The island seems to breathe with you, a living, breathing tapestry of mystery and calm. The final dawn breaks gently, painting the mist in pale shades of lavender and gold. The camp is quiet, wrapped in a serene stillness that feels like a tender farewell and a hopeful beginning all at once. You awake to the soft rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of waves caressing the shore, a lullaby both familiar and new. The emperor gathers the camp for a concluding ceremony, a ritual that weaves together all the threads of this extraordinary journey. It begins with a slow, deliberate walk along the island's edge, each step a gesture of respect and gratitude. The golden brushed brush is carried solemnly in his hand, its single character glowing faintly in the morning light. Along the path, offerings from previous days are revisited, the camellia petals now faded to delicate brown, the carved wooden figures weathered by mist, the scattered grains of rice mingled with earth. Each symbol is touched gently, honored once more, before being left to return to the island's embrace. The emperor pauses at the heart of the island, a small clearing where sunlight filters through the canopy like liquid gold. Here, he speaks softly, words meant to carry across realms and time. To the spirits who watch and listen, to the guardians of this land, we offer peace and friendship. May our paths continue to cross in harmony beyond sight and sound. The camp responds with a shared breath, a quiet chorus of acceptance. You feel the weight of history settling softly around you, a tapestry woven from patience, respect, and gentle persistence. The cat, ever the silent witness, stretches and yawns, its eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. It rubs against your leg, a small but profound reminder of companionship amid mystery. Historians still argue whether this final ceremony was purely symbolic or marked a genuine turning point in relations between imperial emissaries and island guardians. Some believe it set a precedent for peaceful engagement, while others see it as the closing chapter of a fleeting encounter. As you watch the sun rise higher, casting shimmering light on the mist's retreat, you tuck the golden brushed brush into your satchel, its glow fading with the dawn. The island exhales, its secrets folded gently into the folds of time. You settle back beside the fire, the cat purring softly in your lap, and let the quiet settle over you like a familiar blanket. Your journey through mist, music, and silent understanding draws to a close, but the story, like the island's whispers, lingers softly in the air. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Wind down. As the story winds to a close, you feel the gentle embrace of calm settling deep within you. The island's mist drifts away, revealing a sky streaked with soft stars, their light steady and soothing. The distant murmur of waves carries a lullaby just for you, a rhythm as old as time itself. Your breath slows, each inhale a quiet gathering of peace, each exhale a soft release of tension. The golden brushed brush rests nearby, its glow fading into the warm shadows. A reminder that every story, no matter how mysterious, is a thread in the vast tapestry of history. You are safe here, wrapped in the gentle hush of night, accompanied by the steady purr of the cat, the soft rustle of leaves, and the distant call of the island's unseen guardians. Let your thoughts drift like the morning mist, light and unburdened. Sleep comes not as an obligation, but as a welcome friend, inviting you to rest, dream, and renew. Thank you for joining me on this quiet journey into a time and place where silence speaks volumes and history whispers softly. End of script. Sweet dreams.